Hey guys, a few weeks ago I posted up a photo over on my Facebook page and posed a question about whether or not you guys thought that picture was made from a digital camera or made with film. I'm talking about this picture right here. Got a lot of responses from that. I actually wasn't expecting how many responses I was going to get to that question, so thank you for that. And I hate to tell you guys, that picture started out as this picture. So yeah, that was a digital photo that I did a black and white film conversion on, and I thought it would be cool, since you seem pretty interested in it, to show you exactly how I did that step by step in Lightroom and Photoshop. I'm not going to use that picture. I'm going to use a completely new picture, show you exactly what I do in Lightroom, Photoshop. Super easy, guys, I promise you. And who knows, you might even learn something along the way about film. So let's get going. Okay, so we are in Lightroom Classic CC. This is the latest version of Lightroom at the moment, version 9.21. Just so you know, and to give some background on our image here, this was made with a Sony a7R Mark III using that sweet little new Tamron 20mm f2.8 that I'm going to be reviewing eventually. I promise I'm going to get to that. So this is a raw digital file, no shenanigans going on there. To get started, we are going to open up the basic develop panel here in Lightroom and do some basic adjustments. Of course, we are going to be going with a black and white film conversion just from this photo. I'm going to do something kind of ethereal, maybe a little surreal, make it look almost infrared, like an infrared film stock, probably something higher in ISO, so it's going to be a little more grainy. And that's one of the keys to making a good film simulation. Doesn't matter if it's color, black and white. You come down to grain, contrast, and tonality.
What'd you say? Oh, you're talking to me all wrong. It's the wrong tone.
We're going to talk about each one of those a little bit as we go. But like I said, to get started, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's actually work on the basic adjustments on this photo before we kick it over into Photoshop. Believe it or not, we're not going to instantly convert it to black and white. We're going to do all of our edits in color, switching back and forth to black and white, just kind of see where we are, and then do the actual black and white conversion over into Photoshop. So here we have the color. I can tell you that I'm going to want to open up the shadows just a tad here at the base. And then I think I'm going to add in a little bit of a hazy look up here in the canopy. We're going to do that by adding in just a little bit of exposure, a little brightness there, taking the dehaze backwards, which makes it very misty, makes it very soft, and then bringing that texture slider back just a little bit more as well. Texture, excellent thing if you don't use it very much. I think I maybe have mentioned it in another video. It's in some of my Lightroom courses over at Contrastly. Anyway, I'm not trying to make this into a commercial. So decrease the texture, decrease the dehaze, make it really, really cloudy, really foggy. And just take a look at that in black and white to see kind of where we are. I think we're getting there. Like I said, it's really cool to be able to go back and forth with black and white here to kind of get a good idea of what it's going to be doing for you. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe take that gradient down. Yeah, there we go. And I'm actually going to darken that bottom back up just a little bit. All right. Good, good, good. And while I'm in here, pump those highlights up just a little bit. Okay. Switch it back to color. We can see our histogram. Don't always have to go by this, but it's looking decent. I'm going to do a direct adjustment here. Just drag that highlight and white, actually the white section of the histogram, bring it down, and then bring those highlights back up some. Open up the whole global shadows. All right. I think we're looking pretty good. Switch back to color. Warm that up a little bit and then switch back to black and white, because your color temperature is really going to play a big role in and how your black and white looks. Before conversion, that is. Okay, I think I'm liking where we are here. Turn it back to color again, and let's go on over to Photoshop, and this is where the magic's really going to happen as far as making this look like black and white film. Edit in Photoshop 2020. Going to give that just a second to boot up. Okay, so we got this bad boy opened up inside of Photoshop. What version of Photoshop is this? I know it's the newest one. Where are you? 21.1.2, just FYI. First thing we're going to do, convert this to black and white using our little black and white conversion icon here. Just click on that. This is going to give us the option to work with the luminance values in the image now that it's converted to black and white. This is one of the reasons why it's always a good idea to shoot raw, especially if you know you're going to be doing a lot of post-processing, because it leaves all that color information in there and it is very, very tweakable. So we know this image has a lot of greens, a lot of yellows in it just from the foliage. I want to make those brighter. So I'm going to slide that yellow slider up, play around. You can really change how your image, the mood of your image, just from adjusting those individual color values. Alright, I think I'm liking that. Okay, next, this is where the toning comes into play. Now, if you work in the darkroom at all, if you deal with film at all, you'll know you can tone your negatives, but mostly you're toning your prints. That can be usually some shades of blue or shades of yellow, red, gold, or the mixture of the two for split toning. But I guess in a way, all that to say, this is just as much a simulation of a finished black and white print toned as it would be maybe a regular negative or a toned negative. So just keep that in mind as we go. So to actually add in that toning, we have a little thing here called a gradient map. It's at the very bottom right hand corner, depending on how your Photoshop is set up. I'm going to click on that, and we're going to have a lot of options. That's not where we're going to leave it. We're going to click on the gradient, double click on the little gradient bar. We're going to have a lot of presets here. I'm not going to go into all the particulars about the toning panel here in the gradient editor, but just know these first three are probably what you're going to look at the most. These are your Selenium Tonings and Platinum. Platinum is almost always what I end up going with for mine, because I don't like just an in-your-face type of toning. I want it very subtle, and I like that nice selenium tone, that kind of golden tone to my black and white photos. The great thing about working with a gradient editor is because you're actually toning and adjusting the different contrasts within your photos using this little slider down here. It's definitely not as difficult as it might look, I guarantee you. But like I said, that could be a whole other video just talking about our toning. So I'm going to adjust that just a tad. Yeah, like that. And a great thing about this, of course, we're working with layers. We can adjust the opacity or the strength, you might as well call that. So I'm going to dial that back ever so slightly until I get that toning that I'm really looking for. Give you a little bit better picture there. It's very subtle, you know, and why not? Don't be afraid to stack these to get the effect that you want. I mean, why not? Let's add in some selenium. Okay. Click OK. Adjust the opacity of that. Okay, I think I'm liking where we are there. I'm actually going to move this back over into Lightroom to do a couple of adjustments, because I want to show you the different ways you can add a border to this. There is a way to do it here inside of Photoshop, but after we do that, anything else we do in Lightroom is going to affect that border as well. So I want to do any final tweaks that I'm going to do. The big thing is going to be adding our grain before I actually stick that border around that. So let's kick this back over into Lightroom. Now we have our picture back into Lightroom with our toning applied to it. So I still want to I'm just not happy with how this canopy looks yet. It can be a little bit more dreamy, I think. So I'm going to bring the shadows up a little bit more. Maybe not the shadows, just overall exposure. Bring the highlights back down. Almost. Yeah, okay. I want to pop a little vignette around that just to darken up the edges. There's a number of ways you can do this. We're just going to use the quick and easy way with the actual tool. Make an almost abstract appearance out of this. Yeah. Getting there. Bring that contrast back down. All right. Oh, this is driving me crazy up top here.
Oh my god.
Okay, I think for our purposes, that's going to be a pretty good stopping point there. Now, the grain. The grain is what makes film light sensitive. Film has little silver crystals inside an emulsion on the back of the film that it gets exposed to light, and through the development process, the image appears. The thing about it is different films have different speeds. The higher the speed, the more sensitive it is to light. The thing about it is that is highly dependent on how you end up developing your film. The grain is more prevalent in higher ISO films, but you can tweak that so much in your developing that it is a really fluid, film has a really fluid nature. So a 400 speed film could look like an 800 speed film or 1600 speed film depending on how you process it. Vice versa, you could have it look like a 100 speed film. So don't think when you're thinking about these conversions that there is a right and a wrong way to do it. Just get an idea in your head what you want it to look like, how much grain, and proceed from there. I'm telling you guys, there are no real rules to this. So really, as cliche as it sounds, do what you want and have fun with it. There's really no other reason to be doing it unless you're having fun with it. So why make it more complicated and anxiety ridden than you have to? Okay, so I'm off my soapbox there. I'm going to zoom in again so we can see this. And like I said, I'm shooting for a relatively lower speed, lower ISO film. It's usually a good idea if you know you're going to be doing this to shoot at a lower ISO just so you don't have a large amount of digital noise introduced to your picture. Sometimes that's confused with grain. They're actually two very different things, but they can look kind of similar. So anyway, low ISO if you can. Go back into effects. I work backwards when I'm putting in my grain. I usually crank it a good bit on all these sliders. Think of the amount as how many crystals are in there. The size, of course, are going to be the overall size, but the roughness is going to be how high those things are raised up off the emulsion of the film. And the rougher they are, definitely the more apparent they're going to be. And the larger they are, the rougher they are in our simulation, the more sharpness you're going to lose in this photo. So I'm going to start backing off the amount just a little bit to get those fake crystals a little bit lesser of an amount. I'm going to shoot for like a 400 speed here again. And another thing about film, the grain size becomes less and less apparent the bigger your negative. It's a little bit more in depth than that, but just know a smaller film, like a 35 millimeter film, the grain is going to appear more visibly than it would on a larger negative of the same speed. Like a 4x5 negative, you really usually don't have to worry about grain because relative to the negative, the grain size is so small. So just little film trivia there. I'm going to bring the size down, keep working with this until you reach a point that you want. I actually want this to be really rough, as if we've push processed this film, that is, develop it for longer, maybe hotter than we usually would to make it a higher speed, even or make it appear to be a higher speed, add contrast than it actually would be at the box speed. Yeah, I'm going to zoom out and see what that looks like. Alright, take the size back down. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. One thing I do want to do, I don't like the ratio of this or the proportions, so I am going to crop this just a tad. But first, and this is why I wanted to do all this before I put that border around it, is because I wanted to show you how easy it is to put a border, simple white border, around a picture here in Lightroom. Yeah, yes, you can do this. You can do it in the print and the book module too, I think, but it's so easy to do right here from effects. Not effects, I'm so sorry, from transform. We're going to use the scale slider. Dial that back, depending on how big of a border you want. Dial that back to 95, 96, and boom, it's that easy. I will say that you can only do this to an uncropped photo, hence why another reason why I didn't want to do it in Photoshop first. Or crop this first before we do a border. If you were to crop this, go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go to like an 8x10, 4x5 size crop. Bring that in just a little bit. I think that's going to make it a lot more balanced, yeah. And just we've done that, add a little bit more contrast. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I like that a lot better anyway. Okay, anyway, if we try to add a white border around this, I really want to go to effects. It's going to do it relative to the entire photo. See how wonky that looks? Because Lightroom doesn't know that we want the border around just the new crop photo. All this is really doing is shrinking the entire photo in relation to that canvas that's behind Lightroom, that white, so that's what you're seeing. So it doesn't work if it's cropped. If you have a cropped picture, just export it out of Lightroom, bring it back in after you finish your edits, and then put your border around it that way if you don't want to do it in Photoshop. But in Photoshop, guys, it's so easy. I'm going to show you that again right now. So go to Photoshop again, edit in. Make sure you export it or kick it over to Photoshop with Lightroom adjustments included. So we're back into Photoshop, and I'm telling you, folks, it couldn't be easier adding a border. It's going to be the same principle as it works in Lightroom. It involves adjusting the canvas size around the photo. So we're going to go to Image, Canvas Size, or Alt-Control-C on a window. It would be Option-Command-C on a Mac, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to open up your canvas size dialog. You have a few options. I personally like to leave the measurements on inches. You can change it to any number of things. If you're on metric, you can change it the size to that. You can change it per pixels, percents, all kinds of stuff. To me, it's easier, of course, if you're on the metric system, it's easier just to leave it on your native measurement system because I can picture the print easier that way. It's going to give you your original size. So if I printed this all full size, we're looking at a 21 by 26 print, 21 by 26 inch print. And if I want to add just a 1-inch border around that, I just up those numbers by 1 whole inch. The great thing about this is you can make your border any color that you want. I usually like white or black or a combination of that. I'm going to leave it on white here, so I'm going to click OK, and we're going to click OK again, and boom, there's a white border. If you want to take it off, you can take it off, Control Z or Command Z. If you want to add it on again, a different size, just go to Canvas Size. Let's say you wanted to make it, what do we do? Yeah, 22, 27, but this time we're going to make it black. Click OK. So we have a black border. and be really artsy fartsy, we're going to add a 1/2 inch white border around that. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of math here, but you can muscle through it. Change it to white. Yeah, there you go. I'm serious. It's that easy because all we're doing is making the canvas size bigger than the picture. We're going to click close. That's going to open it back up in Lightroom. Let's look at a quick before and after and reference view just to show you what we started with and what we've ended up with. This was our original right here. So just doing the steps that you've seen here, we went from this to that. I can't say that I'm just still totally happy with that. I don't think we really ever are, but it is a very, very, very good simulation of at least a technical level of the grain, some of the actual wet toning techniques that you use in the darkroom. So it's a really good approximation of a film photograph, a film print. And like I said, you know, unless you're neurotic like I am and you love talking about film and film conversions, that kind of stuff, it really doesn't take that long to do. Even if you're not familiar with Photoshop, it's extremely easy, guys. I promise. Once you start doing this kind of stuff, it's probably going to get out of hand, which is okay. Now, before we end things out here, guys, I'm going to show you one more picture. This one right here. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a film picture, one made from film, or do you think that's a digital picture, one made with a digital camera? I would be incredibly interested to hear your thoughts. Put them down there in the comments, along with any questions you might have about all this kind of stuff, and let me know if you want to see more of this in the future. I thought about maybe doing some color digital image conversions, that kind of thing. So yeah, anyway, let me know in the comments about all that stuff. Thanks again for joining me. I am Adam Welch. Until next time, take care, everybody.